Right now, searches are unfolding on both sides of the Atlantic off the coast of Brazil and Africa for Air France Flight 447, Matt.
And we have to say, so far, things do not look very promising, Meredith. The plane was due to land at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris at about 5 hours ago, just after 2 a.m. out on the Pacific coast. Now, loved ones have gathered there. They're waiting for any word. Let's get straight to NBC's Tom Costello. Tom, what can you tell us?
Here's the latest information we have. 228 people on board. That includes 216 passengers and 12 crew members. It left Rio at 6:15 or so East Coast time yesterday and was supposed to have arrived in Paris at 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. 2:10 Pacific time. Nobody has seen it. Nobody's heard from it. We do know that at about 10 o'clock East Coast time, an automatic message was received by Air France indicating that it had some sort of a electronical circuit malfunction. The theory here is that perhaps it went into a heavy turbulence zone, maybe with lightning, and was hit by lightning. Although we should also hasten to add, planes are hit by lightning all the time. That normally doesn't bring them down. In fact, it rarely brings them down. So there's a great deal of concern here about the fate of this crew, the passengers, as well as what happened. The one big problem is that there's a huge portion of the Atlantic Ocean with really very little radar coverage, and that's the case here. This plane had been out of radar contact, as is normal, and they don't know where it went down. The Brazilian Air Force is now searching some 1,500 miles off the coast of Rio, but to underscore how uncertain this whole thing is, they also launched planes from Africa to search on that side of the Atlantic Ocean. We do know that this was near the intertropical convergence zone in the equator. That's an area of very rough weather, usually heavy winds, and can also mean a lot of rain and that kind of activity. Planes fly through that on a regular basis, but did something happened with this Airbus A330 that perhaps was unexpected. The pilot we know was a veteran pilot. He had more than 11,000 hours of flying experience. We also know that the plane was relatively new, only about 4 or 5 years old. So there are a great number of questions right now about what happened and not a lot of answers. The fear is that we may never know, that the black box and the crew and the passengers may be at the bottom of the ocean. Matt, back to you.
Tom, just real quickly, though, so you get an auto message from the plane, but no distress call from the actual cockpit.
Absolutely right. They never heard a word from the crew, so if something terrible happened, it may have been very quick, and the crew didn't have time to even talk via radio.
All right, Tom Costello in Washington for us. Tom, thank you very much. It's 3 minutes after the hour. Here's Meredith.
Matt, thank you. NBC's aviation special correspondent Robert Hager now joins us by phone. Good morning, Bob, and what more can you tell us?
Not a lot, Meredith. I think this will be a very difficult crash to figure out what happened. I mean, imagine first the difficulty in simply locating where this plane went down. As Tom mentioned, there are huge stretches of the Atlantic with no radar coverage, so they don't know an exact moment when the plane would have disappeared from radar had radar been visible. So they've got a huge search area. And when you're over ocean, I mean, it's like hunting for a postage stamp in a forest. It's really difficult. You'd be looking for little pieces of the plane that would float on the surface. As Tom said, too, I think the fact that they didn't get off any kind of an emergency call indicates that whatever happened would have happened very suddenly, and that suggests that the plane would have fallen from altitude, which means it would have hit the water very hard. Chances of staying intact or floating on the water for a while would be almost minimal. Negligible, really. So I fear the worst in this case.
You know, Bob, there was this automatic signal indicating electrical problems. How do those signals work?
Yeah, well, that just senses an electric anomaly, and there may be a fairly sophisticated signaling system, so they might be able to pin down more exactly what kind of electrical problem. But an Air France source was speculating lightning, and that's true. I mean, there have been some crashes caused by lightning, but all of them long ago. And planes are very, very well protected against lightning, and on average, they guess that the average plane is hit at least once a year with no consequence at all. In the cases where planes did go down, and they were mostly years ago, it was lightning causing the fuel tank to explode, and that would cause the breakup of the aircraft.
You know, Bob, I always thought that when you had severe turbulence, planes were aware of it miles before they were going to hit it, and they could either go lower or higher to avoid it.
Well, yes, you can do some things like that, but on the other hand, if it's a big storm, you can't really get above it because the plane won't fly that high, and you don't really want to go down that low in that bad weather turbulence, because if something does happen, you need a lot of room to recover the plane for forgiveness. And often these storms are very, very broad, so they can't go around them. So sometimes there's no choice but to bite the bullet and go through.
So, Bob, is there a real possibility we may never know what happened to this plane?
Oh, I believe that they'll find it sooner or later. I remember there was an Air India crash. It was back in, I think it was 1988, and it was going from Montreal to London, and it crashed off the coast of Ireland. It was a bomb in that case, a Sikh problem with terrorism. And it took the longest time to find that wreckage, but they finally did find it, and then they went down deep into the ocean and hauled up the flight data recorder, which gave them the clues to what caused the crash. So I believe eventually they will find this wreckage.
A very sad story. Bob Hager, thank you so much.